it's the power division is powerful. When you divide people, it keeps you distracted. And I'm not gonna go into this whole, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists around there, but I'll say, this major problems happening in this society that needs to be addressed. The amount of kids getting shot by gun violence, all of
Mhm.
these chemicals being spilt. Like there was a train derailment in Ohio,
Oh,
most people
yeah.
didn't know about, you know, stuff like that is happening. But more people more I'm more oppressed than you. Everybody wants sympathy. And our media is they're making money off of this stuff. I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't even realize now New York people are calling New York Post a Republican newspaper. They're calling this newspaper a Democrat. Everything is a label. Everything. I don't know.
Everything.
It's nuts. I mean, back then, yeah, it was rough. Back then, it was rough, but it wasn't many labels. It was just people, a group of people hated one another. Now it's like this group hates this group hates that group hates that. It's ridiculous, and I think it's just like it's a way for our media and our government to keep people divided. When you're not together, when you're not working together, you can't change things, and it's sad to see so many people have so much hate in their heart.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very, very privileged to have Mr. Percy Brown here with me, who's an actor, a comedian. You're a podcaster as well.
Absolutely,
Man,
absolutely, the most charismatic man in entertainment. Glad to be here.
what does it say? You're the Prince of fresh air.
Yes, that's right, Prince of Fresh Air. Not
Well,
the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, but
there's a lot more to you than just that. So I'm gonna let you kind of kick things off by telling us a little bit more about you.
yes, absolutely. A lot of people see the good looks, the tall, dark, and handsome, the hair, and they get memorized. And I'd always tell people, there's more that meets the eye. So, for me, um, believe it or not, I grew up in the projects in New York City, New Yorker, born and raised. And I just grew up in the city. I've, been involved. Well, not personally been involved, but I've been around gang activity, criminal activity. I've witnessed a lot of shootings on the weekends. A lot of my friends, um, got hurt to gun violence. I've been approached by gang members, almost jumped at the age of 13 in middle school. But I never let that deter me. I've always been more of the studier type. So I played chess competitively when I was a kid. I had a master too, so I did compete in tournaments. Um, did card magic for over a decade. And I've always been one to uh I knew what I wanted to do at an early age. Around the age of 12, 13, I knew I wanted to be an actor. So since then, my determination has been acting. So I've went to high school for acting. I performed all over New York City, off Broadway. I've worked with celebrities. I went to St. Bonaventure University where I graduated in 2018 with my BA in theater. And then, ever since then, I kind of just bounced back and forth between LA and New York. Just focusing on my career, looking for the next big gig. And I created the podcast over the pandemic because the entertainment industry is it's a hard, unpredictable career. So it's always nice to have something that's a little more stable in my life that allows me to be creative, that I can also do. And I'm young too, so I said, why not? If I fail at it, I still got time to bounce back. But luckily, I haven't, so that's the good thing.
Well, you talk about your good looks. They tell me I have great look for radio.
I've been told I have a face for radio, so
And the pandemic, as bad as it was, there was a few positive things that I got out of it. One, like so doing the podcast, I think it's when I really got serious about it. It gave some people more time to give you to do a show, and it also kind of opened up this whole doing things by Zoom or whatever video outlet you might have. But that, I guess you could say, that was the best part of it for me anyway.
Right. You know, I've talked about on a podcast some of the other stuff I've done. I like the pandemic, and I think it depends on who you are as a person. But I felt like it allowed me to be creative and find new ways to be creative. I think if you just use that time to just eat Doritos and watch TV, you probably thought it was a big waste. But I always tell people, like, when you like that opportunity, as bad as it was, unfortunately, all the people that lost their lives, unfortunately, but that time I created this podcast, and it actually wasn't called the Prince of Fresh Air when I first started. It was I had no name. It took me a while to come up with a name. It was called Controversial Topics when I first started. But I started doing it because me and my buddies, we always been opinionated. Us New Yorkers, very opinionated, always want to speak. So I
No.
said, yeah, I know it's it's a shock. So I was in LA when the pandemic. I actually just moved to LA when the pandemic started. So people knew I wasn't from LA. So they was like, you should think about doing, interviews and stuff. So me and my buddy, we decided, you know what, let's do a podcast. So one day, I think it was maybe a month or two into the pandemic. I said, I'm getting bored just playing video games and vaping, because that was all I was doing. I was, 23, 24. So I was just playing video games, vaping, waiting for the next opportunity. And, my agents did work hard for me, but it was just like the entertainment industry shut down. So it wasn't much gigs. And so I was feeling lazy. So one Saturday, I picked up my phone. I had a little cheap microphone that I used for self tapes for acting, and we recorded my first episode like that. And it wasn't the greatest quality, but you know what? It started something that I said, you know what? Let me give it a try at least. And then a couple episodes in, I got feedback. He was like, yeah. You could probably do better with the audio, but I love the way how you talk. You're very presentable. You're very charismatic. You should continue doing it. And so, that one Saturday turned this podcast I did. I wrestled. It took me a while with the name. I think I had controversial topics for quite a while, and then I wanted something catchy because with podcasting, everybody started hopping on the podcast trend. Um, I wanted something that was catchy that stood out, and so I knew controversial topics wasn't going to be a long-standing popular name. So, I think someone it was a search engine thing I did. And I was throwing out different catchphrases, different names, and then I came up with the Prince of Fresh Air. So you had the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. It's just spin on that, but it's different. And like when you think of the name, the Prince of Fresh Air, it's catchy, but actually means something. So fresh air is not just a catchy slogan. It's actually my version of being able to have an open conversation. And this time, as you know, we don't have those type of conversations no more. It's usually, if you don't agree, shut up, you canceled, move on. So for me, it became, I think I officially came up with that name in 2021, and I've ran with it since. And luckily I've been able to grow it, interview some amazing people, learn amazing backstories, and even for myself, start opening up a little bit, because a lot of people just see me and they think, oh, okay, he thinks he's full of himself. He's a tool job, which I am. I'm not saying I'm not, but there's more sides to me.
When we have open conversations, and I'm guilty of this too, instead of really saying what's on your mind, we try to soften everything and not really say what we mean. At least the ones that I see on YouTube and whatever, that's the way they seem to be. But you're not like that. You really say what you mean, right?
Absolutely. You have to. People want to hear your opinion, and that's why, for me, it's been important for me to say my truth on a podcast. Now, my my journey through podcasting has been, and it's different for everybody, but as someone who kind of has a public figure like aspect to him, I have to be a little more careful with what I say, because I know as a New Yorker I could be a little more brazen and ruthless with how I talk. So I also got to be aware that not everybody wants to hear that, and there's a time and a place for that. So I've learned, throughout my journey, especially podcasting, it's taught me the idea of balance. So while I don't limit free speech, I don't edit podcasts if I don't like something that a guest said or I said. I do keep it in a way where whatever you say, as long as you tell me, I want that cut out, it's free reign. You speak what you want. You speak your truth, you speak your piece, and no topic is off boundaries. So, on my podcast, I've had, celebrity actors on. I've had people who work at McDonald's. I've had teachers, drug addicts turned musicians, drug addicts turned professionals. And it's all about learning. So, my slogan for my podcast, a helping hand is a better hand. And I came up with that because, when I was in college, I actually got to work with a lot of people who struggle with drug addiction, drug abuse. They volunteered. So at my college, we had a place called the Warmer House, and it was a place in the community nearby in next town where people of low income who were struggling could come and have a free meal that was hot and cooked that we prepared. So a lot of the volunteers were people in halfway houses. Part of their probation was to do community service. And I got to meet a lot of them over the summers. Instead of being at home with the family, I stayed up there and I worked on the farm. I worked at that place. And I've learned that the people at their lowest points in their life are some of the most caring, some of the most, forgiving, some of the most driven. And I've used that lesson throughout my journey with podcasts. There's always a way for someone to learn. And so a lot of people feel like they don't have a story to tell. Everybody has a story to tell,
yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're famous or rich. Everybody has a story to tell, and there's always somebody who can learn from it. So, I've had, people on the podcast, like I said, struggle with addiction, had a life-changing injury. Yeah, like, oh, nobody wants to hear my opinion. Nobody wants to hear. And then it turns out that episode is the highest rated episode I've ever had. So it's not about how you feel that people might interpret. It's about the message, and the message is help each other. You may not think your words is going to help somebody, but there's always somebody out there who's going through the same thing you might be going through or have experienced what you're going through, and they probably need some help, guidance, and they want to hear somebody who suffered, who went through the trials and tribulations, and can give them the words of encouragement of how to bounce back and recover and keep going forward. So that's how I operate my podcast. It's more about entertaining, charisma, of course, but learning, taking away something important from the episodes.
Yeah, that's why I do my show. There's many things that I've done in my life that I'm very ashamed of. And then there's things that have happened to me that is, let's face it, it's embarrassing. But I'm very open about it, and I bring on people that have had similar or even worse than what I've been through. So that person out there knows, hey, there's hope. There's a way out. And I think it's very important that we try to promote shows like what we do over a lot of the more, let's face it, a lot of them are trashy. They don't have any value whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, yeah, okay, it's entertaining. I find myself watching some of those videos myself, but then you bring on someone who's gone through an addiction or sexual, whatever's happened to them.
Right.
And then that one person out there hears that story and like, wow, I went through that too. I can make it. You might make the difference out of somebody going home and ending their lives,
Absolutely. I've been fortunate to meet people that I knew it. I didn't know. And, the crazy part about it is it's been a learning experience for me too, because, I start off with the whole good looks and the good hair, not to, I mean, I'm rubbing it in a little bit, but a lot of people don't realize I have a past myself. It may not be as traumatic as many people's, but a lot of people, you may look at somebody and say, "Oh, they're pretty, they're perfect, they look like this." And I'll tell you the story. Like one of these girls I had on a podcast, I actually met her while I was working at my local gym a couple years ago, and she was one of those girls you see her, you be like, "Oh, she's pretty. She should be a model. She's perfect." And then you hear a story. She's battling lupus. She's had a lot of health issues, and she doesn't let that stop her. But that's something you may look at her parents and say, "Really? She's going through that?" So it really goes to show that sometimes you can't judge a book by its cover, because some of the most perfect looking people are the most are struggling. I mean, look at Robin Williams. He was a talented actor, comedian, and he looked larger than life. And look what happened. He struggled with depression. So it's, everybody, one of the things I always tell people who come on a podcast, don't feel like you have to be a person you're not. For me, it's about entertainment. I want to be one of those podcasts. People like, "Oh, it's like no charisma at all." Because I've listened to a few of those where, let's face it, nobody really wants to hear about you drinking beer on a Sunday. Nobody really wants to hear that, right? But if you have some personality, you make it fun. So if people drive and in a car, they're stuck in traffic, they get some laughter. They hear different layers. It elevates the talking point. So when I have people come on with these stories, I try to make it as fun and entertaining, but also serious. So when it's time for us to talk about, let's say one of the guys recently I had on, he had a life-changing injury on the workplace. So when we get to topics like that, we make it serious, but we also try to make it so where, it's not, too somber, it's a learning experience, because I know it hasn't affected him in a way that now he's just drinking all day and he can't, it's a way for him to now come on a podcast and say, instead of doing that, my wife helped me. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, projects I never thought I'd be able to do, I'm actually doing, and the success I'm seeing. I want those stories to be told, because so many times in this society is so negative. It's not a lot of positivity. You go on Twitter, you go on the news, everything is negative. You don't see nothing positive, and I think that's what we're missing, is that positivity. We need more, like you said, positive podcast where you could take something away from it. You can learn something from it, opposed to, "Yeah, I smoke 5 blunts." It's just, but each their own. I'm not judging, but that's just me.
I try not to show my emotions when I'm doing my show. And the reason is I want to be composed for my audience and for my guest. I mean, it's about my guest, not about me. The only time I can say that I broke down and cried, I had a lady on who she had been molested. She had been taken advantage of, and she had all these. I mean, she'd been beaten. I mean, all these things happened to her, and then as she finally got out of that situation, she ended up with a disease that there's no cure. And I think she had 6 months left to live, and she was a few months into that when she did my show. But she was still writing books and doing podcasts, trying to get that message out there to try to bring hope. And this, if anybody had a reason to be bitter, it was her.
Oh, absolutely.
But she still had this upbeat outlook. And she knew she was going to die, but she knew that she needed to get a message out. And I mean, it broke my heart. If you didn't at least shed a little tear, listen to her story, you had no feelings as a human being.
Right.
But she was trying to bring positivity. That whole thing could have been a cry fest, but she was trying to bring positivity out there. Oh my God, if she can do that, why the heck can't I do that? Why can't I bring something out there? And I think that's what we need to get across to that regular person on the street is, hey, you might have a message to tell. You don't have to be in Hollywood. You don't have to be, a Grammy winner to get a message out there. I mean, I didn't know who this lady was, and look how she affected me. And I
Right.
know she affected some of the people that listen to the show. But I'm going to kind of get back to your acting. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's starting to be a trend where some of these actors are getting fed up with what's going on in Hollywood. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
get deep into what it is, but you kind of got to guess. I think most recently was Idris Elba. Uh,
Yeah.
it's like, look at me as an actor, not for my skin color, that kind of thing. And you've got others that are coming out and speaking out against the cancel culture and everything else that's going on. I know that there has been some actors who have been openly about their Christianity and they're getting blacklisted. Well, that's already making things difficult. And I'm also starting to hear from more and more people that they're kind of sick of Hollywood altogether. I think they're losing a lot of their luster. And some people are turning to independent filmmakers. It may not be as high quality as what you're getting out of Hollywood, but at least it's got a good story to it.
Right. Right.
And there's already enough competition out there. I mean, look how many actors we have. How much more difficult is that making it for you?
Right. You know, Hollywood is I always speak highly, but I'm also well aware and I'm very vocal about it. There is some good things happening. Like I said, diversity, inclusion, it's funny. Just to bring it back a little bit. I was, the park I go work out at. There's an older gentleman there who every time he sees me, he asks me about acting. We talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these big actors and stuff. And I always tell him, back then, you know, to be a Hollywood actor, to be even considered, you had to be white. You had to be the standard pretty boy white dude. And the standards changed. So now the days of being the blonde hair, blue eye, hot chick to play in all these movies, now you're seeing diversity and inclusion, which is a good thing. But and that token, like you said, it's people see the glitz and the glamour and they see, oh, he got the Captain America shield. It looks amazing. There's a lot more work. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. So for me, the acting, I always tell people, if you want to get into acting, it's going to change you. And it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. It really just depends on how old you are too when you get in. Because you notice a lot of child actors, unfortunately, they turn into drugs and stuff because they're not prepared. People take advantage of them. And so acting is it's much more complicated than a thing. People think it's just taking a couple acting classes and you're gonna get booked in these TV shows. No, it's a lot of opinions, a lot of people watching, a lot of people with judgment. So I'll give an example. I've had a great audition. I just had an audition for a TV show, right? And I stand audition for some people might think, oh, you just hop on camera, remember, read the lines off the paper and send it in. No, no, it's the standard has changed. Before you could get away with that. Now with the pandemic making it so where more actors are actually doing it at home, the industry standard is you memorize your lines. You have to come up with your character, and when you send it in, you have to edit it. You have to do certain things that they want to see, and that's just the first step. Then you have to call back. That the first step is just the casting director. They choose their favorites. They send it to the director. That's the callback. The callback is the directors come in. So you have the casting director, producer, the director, maybe an executive for, like, let's say if it's a Netflix show, Kevin Feige will come in. Then they see the top choices for the callback. So as the steps go along, the smaller the pool gets. So I've heard stories of actors getting turned away from leading roles in major movies because they reminded the executive producer of his ex-wife. It really is one of those things where you don't know how these people are going to cast. It's not a negative thing, but it changes you to change how you think. So a lot of people think I'm older because of where I talk, but it's not because I'm in my 30s. It's just because I've been in this industry long enough to know you have to mature. So you're going to constantly check yourself. Oh, maybe I need to lose a little weight. I look a little fat on camera. My auditions suck. Maybe I need to get back in class. It's a very critical industry, and not everybody in the industry is critical, but it makes you feel that way. When you go on in the casting office, when you hear the feedback from auditions and stuff, it's a very hard process. And the fact of the matter is, most actors don't work often. Unless you're Will Smith or Denzel, where people call you, you don't work often. So it's one of those things. It's a hobby essentially when you first start, but when you start auditioning for bigger projects, there's more competition. You're not going to work as much because so many other people. But the good and cool thing about it is now you have streaming platforms. So now you're not vying for the same role in every blockbuster movie. Now you can do a hit show on Amazon. You could do a hit show on HBO Max, Netflix. You're seeing Netflix actors, get $1 million paydays. You never seen that before until, when Friends was on air in 2005. Maybe those cast members were getting paid, but nowadays you don't really see that. So it's for me, it's made the journey easier, but also harder, because now, even though there's more opportunity, it's more people, because now everybody knows all I need to do is just do it from home. So more people to send in their self tapes, because that's the standard now. But now it's flooding the gates for everybody. So back before the pandemic, you only had to have an agent to audition for a lot of this stuff, and you still typically do now. But now with the rise of self tapes, more actors, if you have a better sound equipment than a talented actor, you might get a better result, because your lighting might be a little more perfect than this guy. So it's just like little things like that. In a good way, in a bad way is a good thing. But I would say my journey is probably where I need to be. Am I where I want to be? No. But I think I always know I have a whole list. I have a vision of what I want to do. I know at some point I will get there, and it's not a journey, it's a sprint. This industry is not about being the most talented, being the best looking, because you will meet an actor on the street who can out-act anybody, but they don't have the name. They don't have the same opportunities. They don't have the media platform to push themselves out there. So now you have to be social media driven if you want to be an actor. Why? A lot of productions want actors who have good, decent followings, who are active on social media, who can promote. We were talking about this before we hit the record button, but now they want to see that you can bring some eyeballs there. You can promote the movies. Everything is a machine. It's a business. So now you have to treat it like a business. I tell people it's business first, talent later. And you see it with sports. I won't speak too much, but you see even with sports now, you see more athletes coming out with brands. They starting their own businesses. They doing why? Because they see that you're making more money being a businessman than a sportsman. And it's not wrong with that, but realize that it's all about profit nowadays. Whether it's the NBA, Hollywood, the music industry, is all about profit. If you're not making profit, if you're not bringing eyeballs, they're going to find somebody who can do that. And that's the bottom line. It's all about the profit. You have to treat yourself like a business. The hair is a signature look for me, and that's how people recognize me. So if a casting agent sees me, usually most of the time they're going to keep calling me back, because they're like, oh, I remember this guy. So it's a business. You got to treat yourself as a business. That's the number one thing I would tell people. Treat yourself as a business.
I mean, look at Michael Jordan, probably the best at it out there. I mean, geez, the shoes and everything else. I mean, Michael Jordan brand when you see it.
Right. Yeah, it's all, like I said, back then it was different. You could be discovered walking down the street. A lot of these actors were discovered at a coffee shop, walking down the street. They don't do that no more. It's just too many legal things that happens that they don't do that no more. You don't discover like that no more. Back then it was easy to get away with certain things because there was less cameras, there was less social media. Everything was kind of hush hush on the down low. Now you're seeing a lot of these stories of how people were treated on set back then. They was top of the billboard. Everybody was like, oh, look at that, I can't wait to see this movie. but you didn't know that things was happening to them behind the scenes. So it's a the industry has evolved, but it's even more now a business than it is just about talent. Now, there's a saying in the industry, uh, you know, business will get you in the door, but talent will keep you in. So you have to have the skills to back it up at some point. So, if you're going to be going in front of these major networks, you're going to have to need some talent. But to get into that door, you got to treat yourself as your business. Why? You could be great, you could be talented, you could be a better actor than Denzel. But if nobody ever sees you, then it's like shouting in the Grand Canyons. Nobody's gonna hear you, right? So it's definitely more of a business, and it's more about what you bring to the table. So for me, I'm aware that when I go into a casting office, I'm not going in to be Superman. I'm not going in to be the lead of James Bond. I just know I'm not a fool to think that. So for me, my brand is I'm the guy who's gonna come in and steal your girlfriend. I'm gonna be the guy who has more charisma than anybody in the room. That's who I am. So this industry is all about perception, and it's all about what people see you as. So one of the things I usually do is I always ask people, what do you think? What would you cast me as if you shooting a movie? Just to get an idea, because that's what casting agents do. That's what directors do. They look at you, say, okay, realistically, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're too pretty. They do that stuff, and that's why I say you got to know who you are, you got to know your type, and you got to know your brand. Because once you know that, then okay, I'm gonna stay away from these type of things. I'm gonna focus on this route. So that's what I do. I know my lane. I stay in my lane. I don't go too much. When you're young, you're doing college theater and stuff, it's easy to get away with that because nobody cares. But when you talk about money and stuff, things get a little more political, if you will. So,
are you trying to kind of steer more to the comedy type movies, or are you looking for maybe something more serious?
Me personally, I'm not against doing comedy. I actually would like to do comedy, but for me, I see myself action. My size, my looks. I would love to do superhero movies. That I think I would probably do a good job in that. But action, really, because for my size, generally with comedy, even though it's changing, generally with comedy, they like the Chris Farleys of the world. You tend to see more the Chris Farley types, heavy set, white guys who don't mind doing physical comedy. So I don't know if I'm at that point where I want to say I got fat tits, I got big. I don't know if I want to do that type of comedy, but for action, I'm a tall dude. I have some size, so I know that I will probably be casting more like I wouldn't say bouncer per se, but action movies. I would probably do stunts. I would do more fights because I do train kickboxing, Muay Thai and stuff. So I would probably be thrown in that realm because of my size. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger, as good as he was, he got casted in the action stuff because of his size. Even if he thought he was funny, people thought he was funny. They tend to cast you in a certain way because it's more believable. So for me, it would probably be action that they would cast me. And once in a while, I'll probably do action, but I'm probably going to do more action horror movie type genre. I'm probably going to stick in that realm.
Yeah, let's face it, Arnold's not exactly the best actor in the
world. No, he's not. And it's funny. The guy I was talking about, he always asked me, how did he get so famous? How did, this journey and this? It's really just, it's luck. And it's, back then, it's like I said, it was completely different. Arnold was someone back then you didn't see in Hollywood. You didn't see a Austrian dude with an accent who was huge, muscular, good looking, young, white guy. You didn't see that. So he brought something. But even Arnold, you saw how he got typed. Well, at least for me, because I study. But Arnold, he didn't get a lot of speaking roles when he first started. Terminator, Predator. He had very minimal dialogue. Yeah, he did. He had some lines, but he was more of a physical presence than he was a Denzel. He wasn't chewing up the scenery with his words, but his physique is what spoke to people. And so that's what played for him. If you watch trends of famous actors, famous the television, not so much, but even then you do. actors tend to get put in a certain lane. Now, Will Smith, Denzel, there's certain actors who don't get put in that category, but generally everybody at some point gets put in a box. And then maybe you can escape it, maybe you can't. But you'll see a lot of big name actors. You only see them doing comedy, drama. You'll see the scream queens, the girls that only get casted as the lead of a horror movie, because that's what people see them and they play that on their type. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I use him as an example. I don't know. I wouldn't say he's a horrible actor, because he has shown when he first came to Hollywood he can act. But what happened? Whether you agree he took steroids or not, that I'm not going to debate that today. But he put on size, and look at him now. He's an action star. He don't do movies like The Rundown where he has to show a little more range. He does movies where he shows up, kick ass, take names, and he wins at the end. And there's nothing wrong with that. But look at the money he makes. Would you rather take, do the same type of role where you could command $25 million a paycheck, or do you want to be a little more diverse, maybe work a little more, but you get not a quarter of that pay? So it's a business. Like I said, it's some people may not like the typecasting, but you know what? Bruce Willis, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jackie Chan, they all got typecasted, but you know what? They made a lot of money doing so. So it just depends on who you are as an actor, really.
Yeah. Well, there was that demand for the action movies, so they were perfect for those roles. But we were talking the other day about Ryan Reynolds and Will Smith and how they're real kind of cocky and smart aleck, and they always seem to play that same part in every movie. But when they're given the chance to do something more dramatic, something more serious, they've shown they have that depth. They can do it.
Right.
A lot of comedians are able to transition to do those serious roles too.
Right.
Pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. I've had this guy, a lot of comedians, people who fail to realize this, a lot of comedians have troubled backgrounds. A lot of times they make jokes of it, so people don't realize, but a lot of comedians have darkness to them, but they express it in a comedy light. So some people, if they've been sexually abused as a child, a lot of people tend not to make jokes about that, right? But a lot of comedians do joke about that. Oh, my father touched me, but when it's time for them, when they get off stage, like you said, Robert, you see a lot of trends with comedians, especially back then, dying of drugs and alcohol because they have to suppress that. So that's probably why they do a great job in dramatic roles, because that's the side that they suppress when they're on stage. But when they're off stage, they embrace it. So that's why comedians do a great job at dramatic roles, because they have that dynamic with that dramatic role that they can't do. But like I said, with Hollywood is one of those things where unless you have a name or you've shown that you can do that type of work, like Will Smith is one of the most, I would say he's one of maybe 5 big name actors who can do any role, but that's because he's made his career that way. Generally, most actors don't get the opportunity. If you're, Robin Williams, rest his soul, Chris Farley was always comedy, but Robin Williams, he's done some dramatic stuff. He allowed himself to do that. But generally, Chris Farley, Steve Martin, some of the big names, Kevin Hart, they always get cast in comedy roles. That's just because that's how people see him. Now, I have seen Kevin Hart try, drama. It just doesn't work the same way for him as when he pairs with Dwayne "Rock" Johnson to do a comedy piece. So, but it's just a lot of these executives, they look at you and say, okay, we see you making more money in this type of role than in this type of role. So it's a risk and a reward, and when you're not the one who's betting the dollar, the money, sometimes you don't get to make that choice. If you got $300 million to front a major movie project, then maybe, but a lot of these executives, they want people they know are usually going to be good at a certain skill. So if I know that you're good at welding, why would I get you why would I get the other guy who can just study and play that when I know you're good at it already? I don't need to train you. I already know you're prepared. So it's a business. Like I said, it's a business first and foremost. And I think so many people forget about it because, you see the red carpets, you see the lights, the flashing cameras, you see the nice suits. You want to be like that, but it's a business first, and you got to treat it like that.
Or do you feel like you're kind of handcuffed when it comes to trying to be yourself when you're trying to get into Hollywood?
Yes, you have to. It's you have to. Unfortunately, you have to tone down who you are as a person. I know as a New Yorker, I'm I'm more upfront and straightforward than I usually present myself to be, just because I've learned how to, my public persona and my personal persona different. Not that when I'm like Batman, I do crime and stuff, when I'm not in front of the cameras, but I know that I can't do certain things. I can't say certain things because that's just the society we live in. It's a very sensitive time, and you have to be careful who you step on. So like I said, I've I've heard of casting directors listen to my podcast. So for me, you know, my agents are thinking, oh, he's perfect for this role. They listen to the podcast. Oh, he said this about me, or a group of people. He said this about the LGBT community. He's not going to be a good fit. So like I said, it's a business. So for a lot of these companies, Disney, I get a lot of opportunities for Disney, right? When you
Mhm.
audition for stuff like Disney, for instance, you know, their clientele is not rap artists, then it's not rap groups, it's children, families, the working class, right? So for them, when they're looking for someone to play, Steve on Blue's Clues or Yo Gabba Gabba, for instance, right? They want somebody who has that cookie cutter uh, uh, image to them. So they don't want somebody, when parents Google the actor, they pouring shots of Four Local down their throat. They having porno tapes on the internet. So you have to separate your business. So for me, I wouldn't even say for me, but for other actors, I know they have separate pages. So they might have a social media page strictly for acting, and then they'll have one for their public life, and they keep that private. So it just depends on how you navigate it, but you do have to tone it down because, like I said, as a business, do you want to, as a patron, when you go to a restaurant, do you want, the owner might be a party type, but do you want to go to a family-owned restaurant that have girls in bikinis walking around because that's what the owner wants, or do you want a more family-friendly environment where you can take your children? That's how you got to look at it. Unfortunately, you have to be that way, but it's just for anything in walks of life. You have to know how to move around different groups. What you do with your buddies, you won't do in front of your grandparents, right? The things you do in front
That's
of your girlfriend, you won't do in front of your mother. It's just it's that simple. You just learn how to maneuver in society. That's all it is.
and the problem with Disney though, they're going downhill.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
don't get me
they're
started.
they're losing money
Yeah,
because let's face it, they're pushing agendas instead of a good story. And
well,
I'm afraid a lot of Hollywood is trying to push an agenda instead of a good story, which is why they're losing money. But you got a movie that comes out like Top Gun, Maverick. Okay,
mm-hmm.
good story, makes a couple $1 billion.
Right.
Now, this might seem a little controversial to some, but you say you want to get into like the superhero movies.
Right.
Okay, been a comic book lover all my life, and I like my comic book movie to reflect what's in the comic book. Unfortunately, that's not what seems to be happening.
Yeah.
You, but we've got a lot of good characters that happen to be black, not just your Black Panther and whatnot. I mean, you've got like Power Man. Okay, I know Mike Coulter has played him on TV, but there's a lot of characters that are black that are good characters that we want to see come to the big screen.
Right.
Why do you think that they have to take a traditionally white character and make them black just to have a representation? Don't they have enough faith that a good black character can make it on the big screen?
I think it's the society we live in. A lot of these, a lot of these people behind the camera, they just see the demand, and it's a risk that they're not willing to take. And that's the part I do agree with you on. That weight mentality. And I'm not calling out anybody, right? But I see a lot of these shows. Like I was watching Batgirl and some of these other superhero TV shows and stuff that they do. It's clearly there's clearly an agenda. They making people bisexual out of nowhere, and it's not any way saying that I don't like that group of people. But like you said, why are they changing traditional characters and stuff? But it's just because that's what a lot of people's society want, and for a lot of businesses, are you willing to risk $300 million, just for the sake of keeping keeping something intact? So I don't like it either. I do think you know what it is. I think for so long Hollywood has been a white powerhouse, if you will. Most of the actors you've seen who got their big break were white, and usually they got all the roles. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger, who took all the action roles when he was around. Arnold Stallone got all the action roles when he's around. And then, other minorities usually played the same gangbangers, criminals, thugs. So I think for so long, people saw that, and they now has changed the landscape to more diversity. To be honest with you, I don't hate it, but it is weird because I remember right before the pandemic, I look at how when I used to get auditions, right? It used to say male or female, right? Now I see male, female, transgender, cisgender, just a whole bunch of stuff. And like I said, I'm not trying to be homophobic here, but I look at it, I'm like, what are we doing here? So it's like I said, it's just making it a little harder. It's making it easier for anybody to now get stuff. But now you're seeing that everything is open to interpretation now. I mean, I do think fundamentally certain characters like Superman, people are going to push back on it to turn black and Latino, right? Because they
they are
a
making a black Superman, right?
You know what it is? It's that multiverse. Doctor Strange started it. Marvel started the whole multiverse thing. They started, and it's funny. I'm gonna ask you this too because I had this conversation with an acting buddy on my podcast. Marvel / superhero movies has changed the way how people view movies altogether now, right? Most people flood to only see superhero movies now. People don't go to movie theaters as what they used to. They only go when Ant-Man comes out, when Captain America comes out, and the Avenger movie come out. Anything with a superhero name in the title, people go see, right? So now the problem is, for instance, I was talking to someone about this Training Day. Everybody most people know what Training Day is with Denzel. Amazing movie, but that movie came out this year. It would not get nearly as much press and as much money because superhero movies are in demand, and we're seeing the power that comes with it. So Shang-Chi, the guy that plays Shang-Chi, he probably would never have been a huge star that he was if it wasn't for that diversity and inclusion part. So it's one of those things where it is a good thing, but it's also like, they're gonna be taking traditional like Batman, Batgirl, Superman. They're gonna be making all types of variations of these characters, which is not a hugely bad thing. But I think a lot of people are gonna push back that why do we need a black Superman? Because you know what's gonna happen? There's gonna be a Latino Superman at some point. It's gonna be Asian. So it's just gonna be a never ending cycle. And what do you think? Do you think it's an inherently bad thing, or do you think it is a good thing that Hollywood is starting to diversify their pool of actors?
My problem is, I think if it's traditionally been a white character, it needs to stay a white character. But you have good black characters that should get the opportunity to be on big screen. I don't think I don't understand why we can't give them a chance. I mean, they thought they were taking a chance putting Black Panther out there, and look how huge that movie was.
Right.
You've got I know they tried doing it on the small screen with the Arrowverse, but you got Mr. Terrific. Well, you have a black character who happens to be gay, Why not put him on the big screen? We like that character too. Um, I mean, there's a lot of them that we could put on the big screen that I think people would really enjoy,
Right.
but they're not giving them a chance, and I don't think that's right.
I get what you mean. I definitely get what you. I agree. Static Shock. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't know why you know what I think is the easy way out. Easy way out. You know, if for a lot of them, they look at it. You don't have to build up. Martian Manhunter, right? Most people know who Martian Manhunter is if you know DC. So instead of just putting a white guy, we can put a black guy. And it's less work to build this character up, right? And I think a lot of it is just we don't want to put the amount of effort it is to take an unknown name and build it up. And that's why Marvel is such highly regarded. Let's be real here. More people know Superman and Batman by far than they knew Iron Man, Captain America before they hit the main screen. Now, of course, they had their fans, but nobody was clamoring to see an Iron Man movie or a Captain America movie. But Marvel has made these characters into what they are. But now the problem is because Marvel's dominating in so many ways, DC is trying to catch up. So instead of trying to do the same thing, they just put in any type of minority or LGBT member into these main roles because they know we don't have to do the groundwork up like Marvel did. They already did that, so they don't have to worry about how I'm gonna build up. All right, so Falcon, he's the new Captain America. I mean, they don't have to really build him up at this point. They're going to have to release a movie. It's going to do well, and that's basically what it is. And a lot of people didn't like that they made Falcon the new Captain America. But you know what? I think Hollywood, I think a lot of, as the new generation, my generation, the new generation behind me is coming up, as we more people in power who say, you know what? Maybe we don't need to keep these confines, right? But I do agree with you. Why change Superman? He's always been white. And it's not even about, some people might say it's not about the color of skin. Superman stands for hope, and that's what it should be. But, in some aspects, it's like I don't want to change everybody. I mean, it's not worth it, But I get why they do it. But I do agree with your point too. So I definitely agree.
Nick Fury in the comic books was a white guy, but I have to say Samuel L. Jackson has done a great job playing that part.
Oh yeah.
So, I was like, okay, that's not a problem. But I mean, you're gonna take Superman, who's one of the biggest names in comic books, and you're gonna make him black. Well, why can't you just find another character and who's already black? And okay, I understand the buildup and everything, but I think if you really put a good movie out there, you throw that trailer out and it shows, say Mr. Terrific, and it's going to be an awesome movie. I think people would give it a chance, but
Right.
they're not letting us have the opportunity to prove it. That's not fair.
I agree. I'm sure they're going to do the same thing with Batman at some point. They're going to do the same thing with the Flash at some point. I just, and the good thing is a lot of these streaming platforms like The Boys. I don't know if you watch that show. It's on Amazon Prime. The Boys is basically the well, not the actual show, but the actual characters are like low budget versions of the Justice League. But you've seen even that show, Super Commander, who's supposed to be Superman, is white. Wonder Woman in that show is white, but everybody else you've seen, the Flash version is black. You have some LGBT members. So I think people are flirting with the idea of starting to break down those barriers. But like you said, if it's tradition, why ruin? It's not a bad tradition. It's not like anybody's getting hurt by keeping Superman white. Me personally, I never really felt like they needed to make a black Superman. But in a sense of equality and the meaning of Superman, I see why. Because they look at it like people want to see their own version of Superman. Superman is white, but what about, for black people? What about Latinos? What about Asians? They want somebody who as powerful as Superman. Superman is like the most powerful being in DC. Now, The Rock had Black Adam, but realistically, that movie didn't do so well. And on top of that, The Rock is in his 50s. They need somebody young to be doing those type of roles. But nonetheless, I do think at some point it's going to change, but who
Well,
knows? It's
and
a cash grab. It's a cash grab.
Black Adam in the comics, I believe, was Egyptian, but I may be
Egyptian,
wrong.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
But The Rock fits that profile. He has the skin color, the bald head. It makes sense. The muscles, But
but
he's a minority, so it works.
we are in a different time where, you, of course, there's still prejudiced people out there. I'm not blind to that. But for the most part, it's not like it used to be. You had a time during the 60s where you still had a lot of racial tension.
Right.
It was for real. And you had someone like Stan Lee who came out and took a chance on making black characters and they became popular. So why
Mm-hmm.
can't we do that now?
Laziness, cash grab. It's all about pumping out these movies as fast as possible. So I think the days of the slow burn is long gone. You know why? Because most people, from TikTok, and this all plays a part in why a lot of these movies do the things that they do. You know, people's attention span is a lot shorter. People don't want to spend 2 hours, 3 hours watching an origin movie. So, and if you're an unknown character, most people aren't going to want to do their research to find out about these characters. When Marvel first started doing Captain America and stuff, it made it easy because that was an unexplored territory. We had the Hulks and stuff, but they weren't what Marvel was doing. So people were interested for the first time. But now, even Marvel's suffering from that. You're seeing a lot of movies they're doing this not what it used to be. Why? Because it's all about turning out as many movies as they can. So it's not. I do think at some point they do want to do character stories and build arcs, but they also see the business side where people want to see more guns and violence and jumps and superhero feats. When you do an origin story of, let's say Static Shock, although for me, I know him, you know him, a lot of people may not know who Static Shock is. So for them, although I do think, if I'm not mistaken, I do think they are coming out with one. So we'll see. But I think for them, it's the slow burn that they're like, it's gonna take forever. We could just take a popular name like Wonder Woman. Everybody knows who Wonder Woman is. We can make her, a minority and LGBT member. Bam, all the work is done. I mean, it's easy to just package that up and throw it out, then have to start the pastry all the way from the ground root and make it, and then hope that people watch. So I think it's just a cash grab. You can turn as many projects as fast as you can, make as much money as you can quickly, and then maybe at some point they'll probably do it. But it's our society has made it to where if you're not being inclusive, you're being racist, homophobic. So it's that label that a lot of directors, people behind the scenes want to not be associated with. So what's the easiest way to do that? Take Superman, make him a minority. So
Yeah, but let's face it, no matter what you do, you're going to get labeled.
yeah,
I'm sorry, that's just,
no.
well, they, another thing is they go and they make the man seem weak and the woman has to come in and save the day. That
She-Hulk.
narrative is changing. Oh, they ruined
Horrible.
She-Hulk. They
Horrible.
Yeah, don't even want to talk about that.
But
And I think people are getting burned out and sick of it, and you're going to start seeing these superhero movies losing money because people are fed up with it.
you're right. I think, look at the Marvels, that movie coming out. It's an all-female cast. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the female cast, but I think people are, like you said, the last story that came out, really, like, she was never a superhero before. Now all of a sudden she's wielding his hammer and she's saving Thor. Really? So I mean,
Yeah,
She-Hulk. I I think many people are starting to see. We're not huge fans of this woke narrative that men are weak, women gotta save men. Me personally, I just feel like just make a movie. You know, you don't have to have agenda. And so many movies, Toy Story too. I mean, even the children movies are coming out with agendas. And me personally, I just don't want. Why there has to be agenda with anything? Just people want to see a good story. People don't want a narrative shoved down their throat. And I think so many people are starting to see that. You know, especially at home now, where you have more time to relax, kick back, and enjoy the movie. You know, people are starting to see what, you know, why is this character kissing a what, that's not what it used to be. So I mean, I you know what it is, and I won't, like I said, I won't harp on it too much, but I think what happens is people are seeing the beloved characters. I think that's why the beloved characters, Buzz Lightyear, why are they pushing a narrative with Buzz Lightyear? We've always known what Buzz Lightyear stand for. Is a children's character. You know, you taking your kids to see Buzz Lightyear and you seeing all types of, you know, things you didn't really expect to see in there. You're like, what is going on? And I think that's I think that's how people start opening their eyes to it. We're seeing the beloved, you know, already built up characters and franchises turn into this new woke culture project. And it's like, why are you ruining it? You know, and you know, like I said, I ain't trying to rub nobody's feathers here, but sometimes you can't remake a hit classic. You know, Home Alone, such a great movie. Now you see the newest ones; it's horrible. They just ruining the legacy at this point. But it's because money, cash grab, and they see what the people, well, some people want, so they're going in that direction. And unfortunately, the mass amount of people are suffering because they're trying to appease that small audience. But you know, I don't know. I think it's stupid.
They're trying to keep pushing it, and I think they believe that people are going to change their minds, but the numbers are proving that people are not changing their minds. They want their beloved characters, they want the stories, they want good stories. And when you're pushing your agenda on everyone else, that totally takes away from what it's supposed to be in the first place. That's my opinion on it. If they want to continue to lose money, then I hope they go broke.
Sorry. You know what? Everything's a cash grab. Like, you know, you see in a lot of movie theaters now charging, they're doing the whole seating thing like airplanes do, where you pay according to the seat. I mean, everything is just a cash grab now, and it's annoying. And that was one of the points I was making too, because my buddy, you know, he came on the show. We was talking about acting. It's the same narrative I use. It's like, you know, you have to choose which actor you want to be. Do you want to be a guy who could do everything and get paid less, or you want to just do one thing and make more money? It just depends on who you are. And a lot of these businesses, they want to be all over the place to appease these small groups of people, but their target audience, the people that actually matter, they just trying to appease that small loud group compared to the 98% that just wants a good movie just to shove down the narrative. And like you said, you know, some of these movies are just pure entertainment. Why are you throwing a whole narrative to it? You know, you dressing this up for something it shouldn't be. We just want to see the person kick ass, take names, and go home, right? Now we got to sit through and watch a whole message of this and this and this, and people don't care. People just want to see a good movie and go home. You know, that's how it should be. But
let's go chase down the Joker. But wait, let's have a gay kiss first. You know, if the movie and the story is supposed to be centered around that, then fine, but not when you got a superhero going after a villain. It should just be all about that,
right?
You know what I mean?
I agree. It is, the whole landscape is a mess, and you know, time will tell. As we've seen with time, it's not going as well as they probably thought it was. I think at first it was cool, but I think it got overboard. I think people started pushing the boundaries a little too much. It was like, okay, this person is bisexual now. I can overlook that, but now you're seeing full blown makeout sessions, and you know, you turn the beloved characters into, you know, these type of characters. I think people will turn off to that. It's like, Inclusion is
Let's
one thing, but now you dominating it with this stuff. Come on, man.
well, it's not real. That's the thing. That's
Right.
not what these characters are supposed to be. And if you have I'll bring up Mr. Terrific again. He was supposed to be a gay black guy. We didn't care. That's
Right.
cool. But the stories didn't center around that. It's centered around him making all these gadgets and, being a cool crime fighter. That's what it was
Right.
centered around. And that's what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways.
I get what you mean. Trust me. I know.
Well, I think that they're pushing people in the opposite direction than what they meant to do. Instead of bringing people together, I think they're actually separating them more. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to like you for who you are on the inside. That might sound cliche, but that's the way I am. I don't
Yeah,
care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I'm gonna like you for who you are. If you're cool with me, I'm cool with you. I know you probably heard that a million times, but that's the way it should be.
I agree.
Don't think you're gonna force me into liking somebody. That's not how it works.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. I agree. I think the days of shoving down narratives and stuff down people's throats are long gone. I think people are starting to push back now and they see, look, our society, like I said, I'm not calling on nobody. Our society is determined with these labels and putting people in groups. Oh, I'm oppressed. Look at us over here. Or, oh, you guys feel this way. You over here. You're this group. Or you feel this way. You're this. It's too many labels. Too many groups here. It shouldn't be like that. Back then, I'm saying back then, like I'm, that much older, but just like 10 years ago, this wasn't a big thing. I just think that we're living a very sympathetic, everybody's traumatized, everybody wants recognition, putting everybody in groups type of society. It's ridiculous. It's kind of funny. We live in a society where people want to stop the labels, to stop the groups, but they're also putting everybody in groups. It's like, don't
Exactly.
tell me, you don't see color and you call everybody by a label. I mean, it's ridiculous. We are, and it should be that way. Everybody's different. There's not wrong with that, but we don't have to put everybody in groups. But generally, you are going to be put in a group naturally, and that's fine. If you're a black actor, Idris Elba, you're a black actor. There's nothing wrong with that. You just may not have to do the gangbanger roles that normally comes with being a black actor. You can do, Hemdall and Thor and all that stuff. There are groups, but all these other subdivision groups is nuts. I mean, just get rid of them. Let people live. Life is too short. I've realized this. Look, you could die tomorrow. Do you want to die on the hill screaming equality, or you want to just everybody get along? It's too negative. Everybody wants to do this. You in this group, our group is more suffering than yours. We're more oppressed than yours. I mean, let's all just make money, sit down, have a beer, and call it a day, shall we?
Exactly. Okay,
you
I'm
know,
in my 50s. I saw the change. There was still that tension back in the 70s, but I saw it diminish as the years went by. What happens right now? It's all basically the propaganda you're getting on social media and the news.
right.
Back then, I mean, you saw it on the streets, you saw it, but I saw the change. I, and the thing is, when we were in school, I mean, let's face it, you became friends with people you had stuff in common with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, and okay, I didn't have 100 black friends, but I did have black friends. I had Hispanic friends. I had white friends. I had uh, some Asian friends, and we we just got along. We played it at recess. We hung out at each other's houses. We went to the park and played ball together. we don't get any credit for what we had accomplished. We were breaking those barriers and just being friends, just to be friends.
Right.
So why are we going backwards? Do they want us to not like each other? Is that what it
No,
is?
you know, this this is a conversation I've had plenty of times. Is the power division is powerful. When you divide people, it keeps you distracted. And I'm not gonna go into this whole, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists around there, but I'll say, this major problems happening in this society that needs to be addressed. The amount of kids getting shot by gun violence, all of these chemicals being spilled. Like there was a train derailment in Ohio,
Well,
most people
yeah.
didn't know about, you know, stuff like that is happening. But more people more I'm more oppressed than you. Everybody wants sympathy. And our media they're making money off of this stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, I didn't even realize now New York people are calling New York Post a Republican newspaper. They're calling this newspaper a Democrat. Everything is a label. Everything. I don't know.
Everything.
It's nuts. I mean, back then, yeah, it was rough. Back then, it was rough, but it wasn't many labels. It was just people, a group of people hated one another. Now it's like this group hates this group hates that group hates that. It's ridiculous, and I think it's just it's a way for our media and our government to keep people divided. When you're not together, when you're not working together, you can't change things, and it's sad to see so many people have so much hate in their heart. I've I've heard people say, "Oh, you're a Republican. I can't talk to you. We can't be friends." Why? I mean, you
Uh-huh.
just going to dismiss somebody just because of that? I mean, it's nuts. It's a nuts time to be alive. And I know people are going to say, "Yeah, it's my generation that caused it." Look, I'm one of those people. I want to just live. I want to just live peaceful. I don't want to have to keep dealing with this. Aren't you feeling like this is racist? Everything is racist. Not everything is like
Yeah.
this. Sometimes life just sucks, and it's just this whole label thing, category label society. Everybody's more oppressed than everybody else. It's just nuts. I just hope at some point that we move away from that. But right now, a lot of these media companies are making money off of these social media companies are making money off of it. I mean, it's just nuts. It's I don't know when it'll change. I hope it does, but I feel
I
bad
hope
for
it
the new
does.
generation coming up because holy crap. It's I see it. I've worked at a little shortly, but in Long Island, right after I graduated college, I was working at a tennis facility, and like over the summer, it was they turned into a sports camp for these kids. Like these kids were from I would say about 5 years old to I think the oldest was 13, 14. And most of these kids do not know how to play any type of sports. They were on a phone, they had a Nintendo Switch, they had a portable game device that they played. They knew how to play that. When you give them a piece of paper to read the instructions, they ain't know nothing. They ain't know nothing. We have more important things to worry about in society. The lack of education with kids. How kids know how to go on TikTok and post a video but can't read the first page of a book.
Hmm.
It's this more like I said, there's more pressing, more substantial things we need to be fighting. But you know what? What's easy? Why people aren't talking about it? It's because of division. Everybody's trying to fight each other. Oh, you think you're better than us? We're here to prove you wrong. You're more oppressed than us. We're here to help you. But then another group comes. Oh no, you're oppressing us. It's a chore. It's a chore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
they're
know
trying to out victimize each other on TikTok.
that's the word. Yeah, that's the word. Oh, don't get me started on TikTok. I know that's my job. I hate it. I hate
I quit
TikTok.
using
That's
it. I'll be
stupid.
honest with you.
I don't
I
use it.
quit
I
using
don't.
it.
I don't use it.
And
I think
in
it's
fact,
stupid.
I haven't really been on social media in like a month. The closest thing to social media that I've really been doing is LinkedIn, and that's only because it's more serious.
Right. And
But
I'll say I do know a lot of people who are doing that, taking more breaks. Even me, subconsciously, I do take breaks. I'm not one. I grew up without a phone. Although I did have a phone, that was the first thing my mom ever took from me when I did get one. When I got in trouble, she took it for months at a time. So I'm used to speaking face to face. That's probably why I act a little more mature, is because I'm used to that. But many people, grow up with devices attached to them, so everything is just right there. And I think that's one thing people need. Social media is an addiction too. I think people just think when you put stuff in your body is an addiction, but you're putting social media in your system when you stare at your phone all day watching TikTok and Instagram videos. I mean, it's our society needs more. People need to get outdoors more again. People just cooped at home, comparing themselves to these Instagram and TikTok stars, and all these stupid. I hate TikTok with a passion. Bunch of morons on there, but that's the hip thing. People see these trends happen and eating Tide Pods, eating dry cinnamon, and people making these trends famous. I didn't even know about this trend. I just heard about it. There's a trend with a bunch of little kids going on TikTok. How 10-year-old kids are on TikTok. Miami. It's a trend now where kids are suffocating themselves on TikTok. They put a pillow. I didn't even know about that. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's how dangerous this stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm afraid of is they're going to try, and let's face it, it's already happening. They want a race war. They want to keep us separated. They want to be able to control us.
Oh, yeah.
Call it a conspiracy theory if you want, but that's my belief, is that the government wants to keep us separated, because if we were together, then they wouldn't have the power that they have.
Absolutely. As power and division. It's like, when you hear these stories about parents turning children against each other, it's basically what's happening. You keep everybody distracted from the real issue, which is, there's more pressing things. Our society would be a lot better. It seems like our society is, I'm not even going to say is worse than, slavery, but I mean, holy crap. I mean, the only difference is we're not getting, certain people aren't being put on the field, or they ain't getting hit with, all that stuff and being oppressed. But I mean, from the lack of, cancel culture and all this stuff, I mean, it's just worse. I think social media has made everybody feel they're important. And there's nothing wrong with that. But so many people feel like they have a voice, and not everybody deserves a voice, and I just think that if people put down their phone once in a while, like even when I go out with my buddies, once in a while, I'd like to snap photos. I do now. I actually do like taking photos because I don't have a lot. But when I go out, I put my phone away. I ain't trying to be on Instagram all the time, but that's our society. You bring your phone everywhere. You're on social media all the time. And I think if our society took a break once in a while, people was like, you know what, I'm going to take a week off, took a break from social media, it'd be healthy. But what's the problem? People's communication skills are short. People can't talk like this no more. Very few people can talk like this.
True.
No, they got to be like, yeah, man. So, what is the next topic? It's people don't talk. They just on their phone all the time.
That's the problem. You've got this small minority of people that take up most of the time on social media, and they're having you believe things are worse than what they really are. If we actually talk to people as an individual, you will know what people's hearts are. It scares me because, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I usually have YouTube playing while I'm doing my work. I don't really watch a lot of regular television. And one of the topics that came up was that statistically, with their little poll they did, that more and more Black people are hating white people just for being white. But when I am out in public or I meet someone new who happens to not be the same skin color as I am, they're friendly, they're very helpful, very nice, very courteous. So is this poll true? Or is the people that I'm actually meeting on the street the way people really are? Because I believe that's the way people really are, is the ones that I meet in person.
Right. It, like I said, social media is giving so many people a platform to speak their opinion. Not everybody deserves an opinion. There's people who praise white power, white supremacy, and they got a major platform. There's people, like you said, who spew hate against white people. Social media has made it to where people can make a living off of doing whatever they want to do. I watch even the most innocent things like fitness videos. You see the type of things a lot of these content creators do. Stupid. I mean, it's not fitness related at all. It's just entertainment and get people's attention span is short now. So the media knows that. Society knows that. So what's the easiest thing? They know people only going to click for 5 seconds. A lot of YouTubers, that's what they do now. A lot of their content is to captivate your attention in the first 30 seconds because they know if you're not, you're going to click off. So social media is a good thing because it allowed us to be connected and allowed us to be able to meet new people, stay connected with family, stay connected with each other. But the ugly side of it is everybody has an opinion on it, and everybody forms opinions and make groups, even on social media. I mean, everybody's forming cliques and groups, and our media knows that we're living in a very divisive time. So what is the easiest way to keep people distracted? Oh, Woody Harrelson said this. Look at him. While this major thing is happening. It's the easiest thing to do. Like I said, I think it's ridiculous that you see all these statistics and stuff, and usually it's political agendas attached to them. But it's like if people lived in the real world and got off of social media, you'll see are a lot of cops evil? I'm sure they are. But the average person, when they go down the street, like I said, I've had many friendly encounters, and I grew up in the city. I grew up in the projects that I haven't gotten, Now, I'm not saying that's not that won't happen, but that's not every cop. Not every cop is a cop killer, a civilian killer. Not every cop is out here to shoot every minority, but that's a narrative that certain groups of people push, and they know they have a fan base that is going to eat up everything. So, it's nuts. I mean, I think if people just learn to live, but for a lot of these corporations, they know what's going to pay. Division pays. Keep you distracted.
So I wasn't even going to bring that subject up, but I saw that today, and I'm thinking, why? Why would you hate me just because of the color of my skin? I thought that's what we were trying to get away from.
Right.
But yet they're pushing it. They want to fight racism with racism. And then, and to the point, there's going to be those, that minority of hateful white people that are racist, and people are going to think that all white people feel that way. And it's sickening. It's sickening. But,
it's a mess, man. It's like I said, it's the victim mentality. Everybody's trying to rewrite history, rewrite the history books, and try to change. That's not how you change things. You don't fight hate with hate. If everybody did that, we all be dead. Everybody.
Exactly.
It's but that's just how society. People are being rewarded for stupid and egregious behavior. Egregious behavior. People are getting, record deals and making huge amount of money off of doing stupid things and doing reckless things. And our society has made people are being rewarded for being victims, for complaining. Every time I turn around, there's a lawsuit about something. I slipped on the stairs. I'm suing my apartment building. And people said this about Twitter. I'm a ban them off of Twitter. It's nuts. I mean, I miss the days of. It's like this analogy. It's like participation trophies. Everybody's getting a participation trophy now. We need to go back to days where you got an award when you actually did some good work.
Thank you.
It's that not everybody deserves a clap on the back for the most basic thing. But that's just our society now, and until most people wake up and smell of coffee, and most people, like I said, are buried like this. I walk down the street most of the time, even when I have my headphones on. I'm well aware of my surroundings. Everybody's like this. You know, you could literally run up somebody and rob them, and they won't know who did it because they got their phone like this. That's just what our society is. And I'm not saying it all is a bad thing, but I do think people need a healthy boundary. Learn to do research. People don't do research no more. You know, oh, you a Democrat? You voted for Trump? Oh, you a racist? Get out of here. I mean, that's just what people are doing nowadays. People aren't talking to each other. If people had a simple conversation, not off of social media, but I mean a real face-to-face conversation, I think that's where we start. If people put down the phones and learn to talk, because even that, you know, people don't talk face to face no more. People don't talk. Uh, Dudes don't go up to girls in the street no more and approach them, or just in a setting. You know, they go on social media. People don't, when they have a disagreement, they don't go face to face with each other. They start texting. You know, I'd be in a room with people, and instead of saying, "Yo, what's up, bro?" they go on their phone and text me. You know, that's just the shortcut. That's the easy way. And I think
Exactly.
until we move away from, until we learn how to just have basic one-on-one conversation, all the stuff is going to be just repetitive garbage. Because until we learn how to communicate, you know, it's going to be like one of those toxic relationships where we want things to change, but we don't want to communicate with one another. So we're going to just continue this abusive cycle of, you know, toxicity until at some point somebody decides, I want to change, you know.
Yeah. Well, like you was talking about the whole victimhood thing, you know, our favorite movies and stories used to be about the underdog, the person that overcame whatever to become the hero. Instead, today's heroes are just given that power, no struggle or anything. Let's take Star Wars, for example. Luke Skywalker had to go through all this training to become a Jedi, and then he got his powers and whatnot. Okay, there was that struggle to get there.
Right.
But then you come out with this new one, Ray, I think is her name.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
She has no training whatsoever, but all of a sudden has all these incredible powers and didn't really earn it. She just was given it. She was,
Right.
well, you know, I don't, that just goes to show people don't want to work for whatever it is that they get. They just want everything handed to them.
Mm-hmm. That's another problem in our society. Hard
Mm-hmm.
work, and you know, it's like I said, there's some good things that's happening, you know, but everybody wants a reward. Everybody wants a quick payday. Everybody just wants to sit on the couch and do nothing. And it's like, you know, like you said, people just want handouts for everything. I mean, the amount of complaining I hear nonstop is ridiculous. People want to extra pay for, you know, doing the basic things. It's just, you know, people want a pat on the back from doing the most basic things. You know, I didn't realize I needed to ask for a $30,000 bonus to do my job. I mean, you know,
Exactly.
that, you know, social media has made it that way. Everybody, you know, people are trying to change things, and you know, trying to make you know, their own agendas work. And you know, you've seen a lot of shit. That's why I don't like TikTok. It's not because I don't think some of those people genuinely just trying to make entertainment for people. But like I said, it's giving many people a voice that don't. Not everybody needs to be heard. You know, not everybody needs to express their opinion. You know, and so many of these trends on TikTok are dangerous, stupid, ridiculous, but it becomes popular. Everybody wants to do it. Now I'm seeing grandmothers on there doing outrageous, stupid things, you know, for views. It's like it's ruining everybody. You know, people used to say it was the young generation. I'm seeing old people on there doing stupid things too. I mean, it's
Oh
nuts.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it's because our society has made it so where everybody gets a participation trophy. Everybody gets rewarded for doing I like I said, I see people are looking at the money and stuff that they make, and they're just looking at how many views they get, and they're not realizing it's doing more harm than good. Like I said, you know, I've had school teachers come on a podcast and they tell me, you know, and they in these classrooms, parents, you know, making their jobs harder. You know, a lot of these kids come in, No, they got they got two iPhones, a tablet, a laptop they come into school with. They don't do their homework, but they got all these gadgets. They come in class, they want to be on TikTok, but they don't want to read do the assignment that the teacher gives them. And a lot of parents aren't helping. The parents are, no, Johnny. I'll give an example. The place I was working at right after school, one of these kids called me the N-word, just straight N-word, called me the N-word, right? And his mother was actually one of the assistants of the facility, and her husband actually was an NFL player. He's retired now, but he was an NFL player, so he's pretty well known in that area. So, a lot of the counselors, shocked that he said, "Call me N-word." So, words get to her. After camp is over, I go up there and we talk. So he said this. Wow, can't believe he said that. So I'm not asking her to give him a lashing, anything like that. But discipline is needed.
Exactly.
All she did was say, "Hey, you don't say that. That's mean. All right, you don't say that. You're in trouble." 5 minutes later, he's running around on his phone again. I mean, it's just like no consequences at
No
all.
consequences.
A lot of these kids, a lot of these people, because they live in this dream world of social media, they feel like no consequences apply. So it's like, even on Halloween, me and my girlfriend laughed about it. It was funny, but I was serious after a while. I said, imagine there was a kid Halloween. I was dressed up as Jason Voorhees. Love Jason Voorhees. But I'm like, this little kid was cursing me out on the street. I'm like, first of all, it's New York. Second of all, he lucky it was me because I knew I'd take a joke. Many people in New York don't play that. So when you got a little white kid and you're talking to a black kid, a black guy like that, some people going to kick this little kid or hurt this little kid. Some people don't play those games, and like some of these kids are getting taught no consequences at all. Parents are too friendly with their kids, and then it really starts with the younger generation. If you 30 plus or whatever, you can learn on your own, right? But for these little kids reckless on Instagram, and I should not be seeing 10-year-olds posting bikini pictures on Instagram. I shouldn't even be seeing that. But so many people are just all about themselves, and they're not caring about what's happening to the youth. And I'm more afraid about the youth than I am about all of these me being a black man in the police, because I see with my little sister, she knows how to. You give her phone, she know how to crack it open, go on any app, do anything on it. But you give her a book, she's stuck. And it's no, she's worked on it, she's gotten better at it, but that's because we address that. Many people aren't addressing the issues at hand. It's like, oh, you disagree with me, blah blah blah. You deserve to go to jail, and it's stupid.
No, that's when people need to sit down and talk, and parents need to be parents, and they need to be parents first and friends second, instead of the other way around.
Absolutely.
Man, we could keep this conversation going on, but maybe you can come back on and we can do this again.
Oh, I would definitely come on. I know people can't get enough of this charisma, right? But it's funny. I haven't had a conversation like this because normally when I have conversation, it's usually, we talking about, someone with a traumatic experience and talking about how they bounced back and recovered and became successful. Like just stuff like this. I haven't done it in a while, mostly because I've been afraid of, at least doing it on my platform, I've been afraid of having what I say push back. And I'll admit that because I know we've talked about it. I won't shy away from that. So many people, they get to a certain point, especially when you're a public figure, right? Even for you, you're a public figure. You might say things with the greatest intentions. Somebody might, wake up one day and say, Kyle, I can't stand that man. I'm going to get him. And, if people even find out where you work, they report you to your job. I mean, it's nuts. And I wish we can have freely. And, one of the good things, we didn't assault anybody. We didn't call anybody out. We just shared our grievances. But we can't even do that no more. It's just hopefully not. But most people, they try to just speak that somebody is going to start trouble. It's I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call your manager at your job and get you fired. And it's stupid. But I enjoyed this conversation because this is something I love talking about acting. I do, but it's also nice to just be able to sit back and actually talk about the stuff I actually care about as well outside of that. So, thank you for allowing me to express my topics as well. I appreciate that.
Oh man, my pleasure. I really enjoyed this. And I think we should do this again. But before we go, where can people find your podcast?
You could Google me if you want, Percy Brown, Prince of Fresh Air, and you can find all my social media and my podcast stuff. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, Kyle.
Oh, yeah. Well, I am going to put all the links in the description so people can find you pretty easily. And let's say you're welcome back anytime.
I'll be back for sure. I know people are going to want to ask, where is the Prince of Fresh Air? Where has he? I'm coming back. Don't worry. I'm coming back. And you're more welcome to come on my podcast as well. So,
I'd love
keep that going too.
Let's do that. And I also want to thank all of you out there. If you are new to the channel, well, first, I appreciate you stopping by and I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, hey, y'all make it possible for me to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network